What happens if you don't complete your insurance audit? My name is Ryan Stillwell. I'm the owner here at Stillwell Risk Partners, and we provide a lot of audit support to our clients when it comes time for their workers' comp or their liability audit. And one of the questions we get sometimes is, well, what happens if I don't complete the audit? So it's a good question, right? Because the audit's necessary, because the insurance company wants to make sure that they're getting the premium for what your actual exposure is, and they rate that exposure typically by sales or payroll, always on the payroll for the workers' comp side. So maybe you've had a big increase in payroll, you've hired a lot of employees, and you know that you're just going to be paying an additional premium because of that. Or maybe you quite simply don't have the time to complete the audit at the moment, and you say, like, what's going to happen to me if I don't do this, right? So the answer to this is there's really only a few options that typically happen. The first thing is that the insurance company will do what's called like an assumed audit, or they might just increase the premium, right? So it depends on how your insurance contract reads. A lot of times what we see now in workers' comp policies is there's a form on there that says, like, incomplete audits result in a additional premium charge of 2 times what your insurance premium was. So if you're paying $10,000 a year in insurance premiums for your workers' comp, you don't complete the audit, you're probably going to get a charge from the insurance company of an additional $10,000, right? That's kind of how they do it. Now, what they used to do in the past, they would just do what's a quote unquote assumed audit, where they just assume a higher payroll according to where they think your business might be. It's kind of like a guessing game, but they put that number in there and they charge you for it, right? So in the short term, that's what happens. You get a pretty significant additional premium bill. The insurance company may also then increase the rating exposure on your current policy. So let's say that you had that $10,000 additional premium due for your workers' comp for the policy that was not audited. You might now have an additional $10,000 due on your current policy as well. So they can really substantially increase your premiums. If you don't pay them, they cancel your policy, right? So that's kind of what happens in the short term. Maybe cash flow is not an issue for you. I don't know a business where cash flow is not necessarily an issue that you want to consider, but maybe that's the case, right? And then you say, okay, well, I just don't have the time for that. I'm going to write the check and I'm going to circle back to do this later. Definitely an option, right? The long-term effects of this tend to be a little bit more severe. So let's say you don't do your audit, the insurance company charges you an additional premium, you pay it, and you just kind of say the audit paperwork or the email that you got it in sits off to the side for 3-4 months. You eventually forget about it entirely, and then it comes time to 2 months prior to your policy's renewal, you get a letter in the mail that says, hey, we're not renewing your policy because you didn't complete the audit, right? That is the course that most insurance companies will take at that point. They will non-renew your coverage. Now, in most cases, you can still appeal to get the audit completed in that time frame, but you got to get it completed right away. It takes some time for the insurance company to reopen the audit. It might take a couple of weeks for them to process it once you actually complete it. So you're kind of in a limbo situation there where there's no guarantee that the insurance company will offer to reinstate your coverage. Let's say that you see that non-renewal come through and you say, okay, well, I'm just going to write off this insurance company. I'm going to go to a different one and get my coverage somewhere else. If there's an incomplete audit out there, a lot of times the insurance companies will not want to write a new policy for you because they know that in what they see, right? The whole model of an insurance company is the past is often a predictor of the future, right? It's not always the case, but if there's claims that have happened in the last few years, they're worried about those same claims happening in the next few years. And to the same degree, if you're not completing your audit in the past, they're concerned about you not completing your audit in the future. They're concerned they're not going to accurately collect the right amount of premium for the exposure that you have. And in a certain amount of time, the business is going to come off their books anyway, right? So if you don't complete the audit and you get to the point where your policy expires, you're, number one, probably going to be paying a lot more for your coverage if you can even get it, right? So that's kind of the long-term consequence. Now, all that being said, right, so what's the solution here is to complete your audit, but it doesn't really get rid of the problem of how much time it's going to take you, whether or not you have the time in your day to do it, or how much information they need to compile for the insurance company, how they want to get that. Yeah, there are solutions around that. A lot of it requires a little bit of proactive work. But if you're kind of stuck in that jam, feel free to reach out to me. There are some resources that I can give to you, even if you're not a client, just to kind of help you out in that process. But yeah, that's so in a nutshell, that's what happens if you don't complete your audit. The only solution is to complete it for short and long-term cash flow positive interactions with your insurance premiums. But how do you complete it? And that's where we offer some support.